Hey family, it's your girl, Revolutionary Rika with Revolutionary Rika Speaks. This is Revolutionary Rika Speaks for September 2021. The passion behind my purpose. People often wonder why I'm so passionate about building healthy communities and working with young people to help them activate their purpose. When I see the sparkle in a young person's eyes, I am reminded of the glimmer in my eyes as a young Black girl in 1980. I had the feeling like I lived on top of the world. I lived on the 14th floor of a 20-story building, originally named Eichler Towers. The 20-story Geneva Towers was a former notorious housing project in San Francisco, and occasionally someone would be thrown off the roof. Geneva Towers was also the place I called home for my first 6 years of existence. In 1980, the San Francisco 49ers were Super Bowl champions, and the entire city celebrated their victory. This, too, reinforced my sense of being on top. Every time the 49ers won, the whole site was littered with confetti and trash, which spent weeks cleaning up. However, when a body is thrown off the towers, it takes a lifetime to forget. By the time I was 6, the glimmer was gone from my eye. Like the other people in my building and the Black girls for whom I write this study, I was pressed with the experience of trying to survive. As I think back to the personalities that moved in and out of that building, I see layers of trauma on people who were just trying to survive. As a young Black girl, exposure to such high levels of trauma daily impacted how I viewed, moved, and interacted with the world. I began putting on my first pieces of armor during my formative years in Geneva Towers. Perhaps the many inspiring messages my godmother wrote on her chalkboard in the kitchen each day in the 80s helped counter some of that. The most memorable was, "Be safe." I still hear the words of my god brother, Michael Rashad's voice. Be safe. He was a year older than me and was my primary playmate during our childhood. My godmother left that message one night when they left us home as preteens in the late 80s. They were headed to the Circle Star to see the Whispers or Howard Hewitt. They consistently enforced safety first, but this night in particular stood out because the movie Colors had just come out and much of our childhood homes were taken over by the crack epidemic. As young African Americans living in the hood, we were just trying to survive and live to become adults. I was fortunate to have a spiritual circle that equipped me with the tools to overcome the struggles of growing up in poverty. Sophia Walker, a very spiritual young adult at my church, First Union Baptist Church in San Francisco, taught us how to pray to God during vacation Bible school while marching in sync to Father Abraham had many sons. Sophie affirmed our public speaking abilities through annual Christmas and Easter speeches. My grandmother, Gloria Souls, demanded excellence when presenting from an early age. Sophie also empowered us to talk with God about anything, and she taught us how to put our hope in Him in the same way that the participants in the Harley and Hines 2015 study did. Their frames of hope theory in the Black inner city showed that many Black people in the inner city attend church, establish a prayer life, and cultivate their spiritual practice to sustain their optimism. In my own experience, many of my friends growing up believed in God, but felt limited by their options and access to opportunities because of where we lived and attended school. Fast forward to 1991, the year I became a junior counselor at my first job. As a counselor, I provided a listening ear, insight, and encouraging word to young Black girls I supervised, and sometimes those older than me. It was there that I was able to hone the practice of listening with my heart. I learned that skill from my grandmother, who only had a 9th grade education, but died the wealthiest, wisest woman I ever knew. She could read you through the phone based on your conversation, tone, and delivery of your dilemma. She was one of 10 children, and the whole family called her for wisdom, advice, and discernment. I trusted my grandmother and relied on her wisdom to know how to move through the world. The year 1991 was also when my father left our family. I went to school one day, he went to work, and he never came back. I didn't possess the language at the time to express what I was feeling, but I know now that I was experiencing abandonment and disloyalty. I repressed my feelings for decades. Although my father abandoned me in 1991, his parenting still informed my character. I learned in the 10th grade about my passion for history. Mr. Hitchcock spoke to the inner historian and curious nature of a rough tomboy athlete who marched to the beat of her own drum. I knew that passion had come from my pops. He had me making civil rights collages in grade school. Upon discovering Dr. Gholdy Muhammad's 2020 work last semester, Historically Responsive Literacy Framework, I immediately felt this visceral feeling in my soul. Cultivating Genius is the name of the book. I apologize. I read the book in 3 days. I could see many of my teaching practices in the recommendations to educators section. It could have come from my time under the tutelage of Coach Hill. He took my basketball skills to the next level, but instilled in me that it's always about the team. No matter how many three-point shots I made, rebounds captured, or assists, there was no I in team, and we all needed each other to win. Or maybe it was when Pastor Davis would end each Sunday with a hoop, as he closed his sermon and connected to the storyteller that exists in my soul. Perhaps Sister Davis, a demander of excellence, staff and students, has stuck with me as an educator throughout my career. It could very well be the Black, Choctaw, Cherokee, Blackfoot, and Creole blood running in my veins from generations of helpers, spiritual practitioners, and community activists. My mother's hands, my sister's heart, and my auntie's spark. I would like to believe it's a synergy of these experiences, my traumas, my triumphs, and trip-ups. These diverse seasons have cultivated my calling as a purpose pusher. I too was a little angry Black girl whose parents separated, harbored feelings of abandonment, and found it challenging trying to connect with material that had no relevance to my life at all. I was one of the fortunate ones. I had coaches and a few teachers along the way who took the time to pour into me and give me access and opportunity, while others slid through the cracks. My parents ensured that I had a village, church community, out of school time program, family, and neighborhood friends and loved ones. I had people looking out for my best interests. Even during those difficult years, someone was always there to give me a helping hand. I believe every Black girl deserves that. Someone who genuinely cares about them and wants them to be their very best in all situations, seasons, and settings. Thank you.